It started like any other morning. The sun rose over the quiet town, birds sang their usual songs, and people went about their daily routines. In the small houses lining the streets, children ate breakfast, adults prepared for work, and the world seemed calm, almost ordinary. But in the skies far above, something unusual was happening, something that no one had ever seen before. At first, the objects in the sky looked like clouds, round, soft, and floating slowly. But as minutes passed, they became clearer. They were not clouds. They were massive ships, unlike anything humanity had built. Their shapes were strange, almost like giant animals from a dream, but sleek and smooth as if designed by a hand that was not human. People began pointing, shouting, and recording with their phones. News channels interrupted regular broadcasts to show the skies, and social media exploded with videos and photos. Everyone was watching. Among the people looking up was a man named Amir. He lived alone on the edge of town, in a small house surrounded by fields. Amir was quiet, the kind of man who often went unnoticed. He worked as a teacher in the local school, helping children understand numbers and words. He liked peace, a routine, and simplicity. Amir had always believed that life was predictable and safe. He liked it that way. But as he watched the sky that morning, he felt a strange mixture of awe and fear. Something deep inside him whispered that life, as he knew it, was about to change. The ships moved slowly at first, hovering over forests, rivers, and towns. Then they stopped. They did not attack. They did not make noise. They simply waited, as if observing the world below. Military planes were scrambled, but no one dared approach. These were not ordinary aircraft. They moved silently, effortlessly, and with a power that seemed beyond human understanding. Scientists, politicians, and journalists debated what to do. Some wanted to attack. Others thought communication was possible. But the aliens, if they could be called, that showed no aggression. They only watched. Amir could feel the tension in the air, even from his small house. He stepped outside, shielding his eyes from the morning sun, and looked up. The largest of the ships descended closer, and with it came a shape he could not fully understand. It was enormous, with a face that resembled a dog, but far more intelligent. Its eyes were deep and full of expression, almost human-like in their awareness. Its fur glistened in the sunlight, and its posture was strong yet calm. Amir froze. He could not look away. He felt as if the creature was looking directly into him, not with hostility, but with curiosity. People around him screamed and ran. Cars sped down the roads, leaving dust clouds in their wake. News helicopters hovered in the air, broadcasting live images. Scientists hurried to their laboratories, trying to make sense of what they were seeing. But Amir stayed still. He felt a connection to the creature that he could not explain. It was as if time had slowed down. The sounds of the world, the birds, the wind, the distant cars faded, and all that remained was the silent presence above him. Then, slowly, more shapes appeared. The ships opened in ways that seemed impossible. From inside came beings that looked similar to the first, all canine in appearance but towering in size. Their movements were graceful, controlled, and deliberate. Unlike the way animals on Earth moved, these beings carried themselves with a sense of intelligence that was unmistakable. Their eyes scanned the people below, and wherever they looked. Humans felt a strange mixture of fear and fascination. The government tried to communicate. Messages were sent via radio, television, and even directly through the internet. But the beings did not respond in a way humans expected. They did not speak words. They did not wave flags or make gestures. Instead, they observed quietly, as if they were studying the humans and waiting for something. People began to panic, unsure whether this was an invasion or a first contact. Rumors spread quickly. Some said the beings were hostile. Others said they were here to help. Some believed it was the end of the world. Amir felt none of these emotions. He felt a quiet calm, almost like he understood something others could not. He noticed that one of the creatures, the largest of all, was moving slowly toward him. The distance between them closed quickly, yet Amir did not feel fear. His heart raced, but not with terror. It was more like anticipation, as if he had been waiting for this moment without realizing it. The other humans were running, hiding, or shouting, but Amir remained in place, rooted to the ground. As the creature approached, Amir could see its features more clearly. Its eyes were golden, intelligent, and strangely familiar. Its nose twitched slightly, and it lowered its massive head to his level. Amir felt a strange sensation, almost like the creature was reaching into his mind, trying to understand him. There was no fear in its expression, only a calm and gentle curiosity. For a moment, the world seemed to pause. The wind stopped blowing, the birds stopped singing, and even the distant shouts of humans faded. It was only Amir and the being, standing face to face. Around them, other humans continued to panic. Helicopters hovered dangerously close. Military personnel readied weapons. And scientists shouted instructions over radios. But the creature seemed unaware or unconcerned. Its attention was solely on Amir. Then, slowly, it made a gesture that humans could barely understand. It extended a paw, massive in size, toward him. Amir hesitated for a moment, then slowly raised his hand. Their touch, when it came, was gentle. The creature's paw was warm, almost comforting, and the sensation sent a shiver down Amir's spine. He realized, in that moment, that he had been chosen for something he could not yet understand. The crowd around him noticed the interaction and gasped. Cameras captured the moment from every angle. Social media exploded with videos of the man touching the massive alien hand, and news anchors struggled to explain what was happening. Scientists theorized that the beings had the ability to sense human emotions, perhaps even recognize individuals who were important to their purpose. No one had ever seen anything like it. Amir felt his mind racing, yet strangely clear. The creature seemed to communicate not with words, but with feelings. A sense of trust, curiosity, and understanding passed between them. Amir understood that this was only the beginning, that his life was about to change in ways he could not yet imagine. And even though fear lingered at the edges of his mind, he also felt a deep sense of calm. He realized that he had been chosen not at random, but for something significant, something beyond human understanding. As the first part of this event unfolded, the world watched in awe and disbelief. People questioned whether they were witnessing reality or a dream. Governments debated strategy, scientists scrambled to understand, and ordinary people struggled to comprehend the magnitude of what was happening. Yet, amid all the chaos, Amir remained focused on the being in front of him. The connection they shared was undeniable. The morning passed and still the ships hovered. The canine aliens did not move aggressively. They did not attack. They simply observed, and Amir remained at the center of their attention. As hours went by, more humans gathered, hoping to witness the event, yet no one else received the same attention. Amir realized that he was special in the eyes of these beings, chosen not for power, wealth, or fame, but for something deeper: his character, his heart, and perhaps the way he had lived his life quietly, yet with integrity. By evening, the sky glowed with the light of the setting sun, reflecting off the massive forms of the alien ships. Amir finally allowed himself to speak, though words felt inadequate. He whispered, almost to himself, "Why me?" And though the creature did not answer with words, Amir felt a response in his mind. It was a feeling of recognition, as if the being was saying, "Because you are ready." That night, as people returned to their homes in fear, curiosity, or confusion, Amir remained outside, staring up at the sky. The world had changed forever, and he was at the center of it. The beings above were no longer just visitors. They were a presence, a force, and perhaps a new kind of family waiting to be discovered. And for the first time in his life, Amir understood that the ordinary life he had known was over. Something extraordinary had begun. The first day of contact had ended, but for Amir, it was only the beginning. He had been chosen first, not by chance, but because of qualities unseen and unmeasured by humans. And as he stood there, under the glowing sky filled with alien ships and watchful eyes, he realized that the path ahead would be unlike anything the world had ever experienced. The morning after the ships first appeared, the world felt different. Streets that had been busy with ordinary life were now filled with tension and curiosity. People no longer talked about work, school, or daily chores. Instead, they talked about the canine beings in the sky. The news repeated images of the massive creatures, their golden eyes, and their calm, measured movements. Scientists, politicians, and ordinary citizens all wondered the same thing. Why had these beings come to Earth? And what did they want? Amir woke early, before sunrise. The sky was quiet, but he knew it would not stay that way. He could feel a presence in the air, a quiet energy that told him the beings were still watching. Even after the night, the memory of the gentle touch of the largest creature's paw lingered in his mind. He did not sleep well, but he did not feel fear. Instead, there was a strange anticipation. It's like waiting for something that was both important and unavoidable. Across the world, millions of people were still frightened. Some had left their homes, running toward shelters or faraway towns, hoping to escape what they did not understand. Others tried to communicate with the beings using radio, internet, and even lights and symbols. But the aliens did not respond in ways humans expected. They did not speak words, nor did they make threatening gestures. Instead, they moved slowly among the clouds. Observing with the patience of creatures who had time beyond human understanding, Amir walked outside, as he had the day before. The townspeople had gathered in small groups, whispering and pointing at the sky. Some recognized him from the news clips. He had become known as the first human chosen by the beings. It was strange to be famous in such a sudden and global way. He felt the eyes of the world on him, but he tried to ignore them. What mattered was the beings themselves, their presence, and the feeling that he was meant to understand something important about them. By mid-morning, the largest of the ships descended again, slowly and carefully, as if it were landing on invisible ground. From inside emerged the same canine leaders Amir had seen the day before. They were calm and measured, their eyes scanning the humans below. Amir's heart beat faster, but not with fear. He felt a connection that others could not. When the creatures looked at him, it was not curiosity alone. There was recognition, as if they remembered him from some moment long before. Even before the ships appeared, the creatures began to move among the people. But instead of touching or grabbing anyone else, they paused near Amir. Their movements were slow and deliberate. It was clear that they were not here to attack. Their presence was peaceful, almost like a careful observation. Scientists tried to explain this, saying that the beings must have some form of intelligence that allowed them to judge humans differently. But no explanation seemed complete. The humans could only watch, confused and awed then. For the first time, one of the creatures spoke, but not with words. It made a series of sounds and vibrations that humans could feel more than hear. Amir sensed the meaning in the tone, a message of calm, trust, and an invitation. The feeling was almost like an embrace, a reassurance that they had no intention to harm. People nearby did not understand, but Amir felt it clearly. He realized the beings were offering more than observation. They were offering connection. The aliens' next actions surprised the world. They declared in a way that transcended language that humans were compatible with them, not as tools or subjects, but as family. The announcement shocked humanity. Governments paused, soldiers lowered their weapons, and scientists gasped. The idea seemed impossible, yet the creatures' calm and deliberate gestures made it clear they were serious. They did not demand obedience or power. They were seeking a bond of choice to belong together. Amir stepped forward. The largest creature lowered its head to his level again, as it had the day before. The world held its breath. No one moved. Even the wind seemed to pause. Amir felt a deep sense of responsibility. He knew this was not about being brave or special. It was about understanding and accepting the chance to become part of something bigger than himself. He reached out his hand, and again the creature's paw met his. There was no fear this time, only trust and understanding. The beings then made it clear that Amir had been chosen first for a reason. It was not his wealth, his power, or his intelligence that mattered. It was his heart, his kindness, and the way he had lived quietly, helping others and acting with integrity. Humans across the world watched as Amir knelt beside the creature, placing his hand gently on its paw. The gesture was not submission, but recognition. He understood what it meant to be chosen. And the creatures understood that he understood. As the morning turned to afternoon, the world struggled to adjust. Leaders from every country tried to negotiate to understand the aliens' purpose, but the beings ignored political authority. Their focus was on individuals, on connecting with humans who could embody trust, loyalty, and care. Amir became the bridge, the first human to be recognized not as a subject or a threat, but as a partner. People debated whether he was lucky or burdened, but Amir did not think in those terms. He felt ready, even though he did not fully know what he was ready for. The creatures did not stay in one place. They moved slowly among the towns, fields, and forests, always calm, always observing. They watched people, but they did not harm them. Children approached cautiously, and some brave adults stepped closer. Yet the creature's attention remained on Amir. Others could sense it too. Even without understanding why, humans could see that Amir's connection with the beings was unique. It was visible in the way the creature's eyes followed him, in the way it responded to his movements, and in the quiet, unspoken communication that passed between them. Later in the day, Amir noticed other humans approaching him. Drawn by curiosity and a desire to understand, the creatures allowed it, but they remained calm, letting Amir guide the interaction. He spoke softly to those around him, explaining that fear would not help. The aliens had come not to destroy, but to connect. Some people listened, some doubted, but all were captivated by the sight of a human who seemed to speak the same language as beings from another world. By evening, the sun was low, casting long shadows across the fields and streets. The ships began to rise slowly, as if preparing to leave, but the creatures left a parting impression, the promise that this was only the beginning. Amir understood that this day would be remembered forever, not as a day of invasion, but as a day when humans were offered a chance to become part of a new family. And in that moment, Amir felt a mix of excitement, responsibility, and wonder. People around the world could not stop talking. News outlets ran continuous coverage. Social media was filled with videos and messages from those who had seen the event firsthand. Scientists debated the implications. Governments wondered about security. But Amir's focus remained on understanding the creatures, building trust, and preparing for whatever would come next. He knew that being chosen first carried a responsibility he could not ignore. That night, Amir returned to his small house. He could not sleep, but he did not feel fear. Instead, he sat by his window, staring at the sky, remembering every detail, the golden eyes, the gentle paw, the calm and intelligent presence of beings from beyond the stars. He realized that life, as he had known it, was over. Something extraordinary had begun, and he was at the center of it, even as darkness fell. Amir felt connected to the creatures in a way that words could not describe. He understood that this was more than a choice. It was an invitation, a call to humanity to see that family could extend beyond species, beyond familiar forms, and beyond fear. And as the night deepened, Amir knew that tomorrow, the world would watch again, waiting for the next step in a story that was only just beginning. The days that followed the first contact were unlike anything Amir had ever experienced. The world was still filled with fear and confusion, but for Amir, there was a growing sense of purpose. He woke every morning knowing that the beings above were watching, not as conquerors, but as companions waiting for him to understand. The calm presence of the largest creature, whose golden eyes seemed to see into his thoughts, stayed with him constantly. Amir felt that he was no longer alone in the world. Even if the rest of humanity was still unsure and afraid, the media continued to cover the story relentlessly. Every news channel replayed the footage of Amir touching the creature's paw. People around the world debated whether he was brave, lucky, or somehow chosen for reasons they could not understand. Scientists pored over data from the first encounters, trying to find a logical explanation for the being's intelligence, size, and calm behavior. Governments held emergency meetings, unsure of how to respond to creatures that did not follow any known rules of diplomacy or threat, but Amir paid little attention to the debates. His focus was on the beings themselves, and on learning how to communicate and connect with them. Amir began to notice small details that others missed. The creatures were observant in ways that were almost human. They watched the expressions on people's faces, the way individuals moved, and even the unspoken emotions in their hearts. Amir realized that they were not just studying humans. They were seeking humans who could understand them, who could share a bond that went beyond words. And he knew that he had been chosen first because he could feel, and perhaps even return, that same level of understanding as the days went by. More creatures descended from the ships. They moved gracefully, silently, and with an elegance that fascinated everyone who saw them. Unlike the first day, they now interacted cautiously with other humans, observing without touching or startling. Many humans were frightened, running away or hiding, while others approached timidly, hoping for a closer look. But the creatures always paused near Amir, as if he were the bridge between their world and humanity. This attention made him uneasy at first, but gradually, he began to accept it as part of his responsibility. Amir noticed that the largest creature often made subtle gestures, tilting its head, shifting its paws, or emitting low vibrations that he could feel more than hear. Over time, he learned to understand these signals as forms of communication. They were not words, but thoughts and feelings shared through presence and touch. Amir realized that this was a language of trust, of respect, and of connection. And in learning it, he began to understand that the being's purpose was not to dominate or control, but to build relationships, true bonds between species that had never met before. One afternoon, as the sun cast long shadows over the fields, Amir walked among the creatures. They did not move away, and he did not feel fear. Instead, there was a quiet curiosity in their eyes, a willingness to engage with him in ways that transcended human understanding. He extended a hand, and the largest creature placed its paw gently in his. The connection was electric, but in a calm and grounding way. Amir felt a surge of understanding, a sense that he was part of something bigger than himself, something extraordinary and new. The world outside continued to react. Soldiers and law enforcement tried to keep crowds away from the landing zones. News reporters asked questions that no one could fully answer. Scientists recorded every movement of the creatures, hoping to learn their purpose. Governments debated whether to send emissaries or even weapons. Yet, despite all this chaos, Amir felt a strange peace. He realized that the creatures did not respond to fear, confusion, or violence. They responded to understanding, patience, and empathy. And he knew that if humanity wanted to connect with them, it would have to learn the same lessons he was learning. During one encounter, Amir noticed a small group of children approaching the creatures. The adults shouted warnings, trying to pull them back, but the beings did not move aggressively. Instead, they remained calm, watching the children with what seemed like gentle curiosity. Amir stepped forward and guided the children, showing them how to sit quietly and observe without fear. He explained that the creatures were not enemies, but potential friends. As the children sat with wide eyes, the creatures lowered their heads, sniffed gently, and even nudged the children softly. It was a moment of trust. And Amir realized that these small acts of connection were exactly what the beings wanted from humanity. As the days passed, Amir began to understand that being chosen first came with a heavy responsibility. He was not just a participant in the events unfolding. He was a representative of human kindness, empathy, and willingness to understand. He had to remain calm, patient, and trustworthy, even when others around him panicked or acted out of fear. And he realized that his actions could shape the way humans and the creatures interacted in the future. Every movement, every gesture mattered. One evening, the largest creature led Amir to a quiet field far from the crowds. The other humans had left, too afraid or unsure to follow. The stars above began to shine, and the alien ships glowed faintly in the distance. Amir knelt on the grass, and the creature lowered its head to his level. Through touch and presence, Amir felt an unspoken question. Could he protect and understand these beings? Could he serve as a bridge between their world and humanity? He realized that the answer had to be yes. Fear would not help. Only trust and understanding could create the bond that was possible. In the following days, Amir began to teach others how to approach the creatures. He worked with children, adults, and and even soldiers, showing them how to remain calm and respectful. People learned to observe quietly, to extend hands gently, and to feel the emotions of the creatures without expecting immediate understanding. Slowly, humans began to build small bridges of connection, inspired by Amir's example. And each time, the creatures responded with calm gestures. Signaling approval and trust, Amir also noticed that the creatures seemed to respond to acts of kindness among humans. When people helped each other, shared food, or comforted those in fear, the beings would emit vibrations or gestures that Amir learned to interpret as approval. It became clear to him that the bond they sought was not just with him, but with humanity as a whole. And yet, he remained the first, the anchor, and the guide for this extraordinary relationship. One morning, the largest creature brought Amir closer than ever to the ship itself. He walked along a ramp that seemed alive with soft light, and for the first time he entered the interior of the vessel. It was unlike any human structure, organic in design, with smooth curves, glowing surfaces, and a sense of calm energy that filled the space. The beings moved around him without fear or confusion, as if he belonged among them. Amir realized that this was a place of learning and understanding, a space where humans and creatures could begin to connect on a deeper level. Inside the ship, Amir saw evidence of their intelligence. Tools, books, and devices, unlike anything on Earth, were arranged carefully. He noticed charts of planets, stars, and what he assumed were records of humans. It became clear that these beings had studied humanity for a long time, not as conquerors, but as observers seeking a connection. And he understood that his role was to translate that understanding to become a bridge between worlds by the end of the third day. Amir's confidence had grown, but so had the awareness of responsibility. The world outside continued to watch, debate, and fear. Yet Amir felt a quiet certainty. Connection was possible. Trust could be built. Family could extend beyond species. And he knew that if he could guide even a few humans to understand this, the future would be brighter than anyone could imagine. As the sun set, casting golden light across the field and the hovering ships, Amir stood with the largest creature at his side. The world below was chaotic and uncertain. But here, in this quiet connection, Amir understood something extraordinary. Fear could be replaced with trust. Curiosity could overcome misunderstanding. And a bond could be formed that had never existed before. And he knew, deep in his heart, that this was only the beginning. The days turned into a week, and the world was beginning to adjust to the presence of the canine beings. Cities and towns remained tense, but life was slowly resuming in small ways. Markets opened cautiously, children returned to schools near observation zones, and scientists continued to study the beings from a safe distance. However, for Amir, there was no chance to return to a normal life. His days were filled with guidance, observation, and learning. He had become the living connection between humanity and the visitors. And the responsibility weighed heavily on him. One morning, as the sun rose over the horizon, Amir noticed an unusual movement among the creatures. A few of them appeared restless, pacing across fields and tilting their heads in ways that suggested concern. The largest creature approached Amir first, lowering its head to meet his eyes. Through the vibrations, gestures, and unspoken signals, Amir sensed a warning. Something was happening, something that could test the bond between humans and the beings. His heart quickened. He understood that this was not a threat from the creatures themselves, but from events outside their control. News arrived quickly. A severe storm, unprecedented in scale, was approaching a nearby city. Flooding and high winds threatened the lives of thousands. The humans in the area were panicking. Military and rescue teams were deployed, but they were unprepared for the magnitude of the disaster. Amir realized immediately that the creatures would want to help, but they also needed guidance. They were powerful, but they did not act on instinct like wild animals. Their actions were deliberate, measured, and often required understanding human needs to be effective. Amir quickly made his way to the observation area, and the largest creature followed. He felt its presence as both reassurance and urgency. The being seemed to sense his thoughts. How could they help without causing fear? without harming the people they were trying to save. Amir instructed the creatures to move carefully, to avoid buildings, and to focus on rescue rather than destruction. The creatures tilted their heads, made low sounds of acknowledgement, and began to spread out with amazing coordination as they approached the city. Amir saw the first signs of the storm's devastation. Trees were uprooted, roofs torn away, and water flooded streets. People ran in panic, unsure of how to survive. The creatures worked carefully, using their size and strength to help where humans could not. One lifted a collapsed roof to free trapped families, while another created a barrier against rising water to protect a small group of children. Amir guided them with calm commands, using gestures and presence rather than words. Slowly, the residents began to understand that these beings were not enemies, but helpers. The creatures' actions drew attention from the world. News crews captured every moment, broadcasting images of humans and canine aliens working together. Social media exploded with videos of rescues, gentle gestures, and acts of courage. Scientists analyzed every movement, trying to learn how these beings could coordinate so effectively with human guidance. Governments watched, realizing that the situation was more than just a natural disaster. It was a test of humanity's ability to connect with something entirely different from itself. Amir moved among the creatures, calming them when they hesitated, encouraging them when they paused, and praising them when they succeeded. He noticed how deeply they were aware of human emotion. When they saw fear, they acted gently. When they sensed gratitude or relief, they responded with gestures that seemed like smiles or nods. Amir realized that these beings were not just intelligent, they were empathetic. Their understanding of humans was not learned through language alone, but through observation, patience, and the ability to feel the emotions of those around them. As the storm intensified, one particular incident tested Amir's courage and the trust between species. A small group of children had become trapped on the roof of a partially collapsed building. The water around them was rising rapidly, and the adults nearby could do nothing to save them. Amir guided one of the larger creatures carefully, showing it how to approach without frightening the children. The being extended its massive paw, gently lifting each child to safety. Amir watched, holding his breath, and felt a surge of pride and relief as the last child was set down safely. The creature nudged Amir gently, as if acknowledging their shared success. The storm raged on, but Amir and the creatures continued their work. They rescued the elderly, helped move supplies to stranded families, and even guided emergency responders to areas that were difficult to reach. Throughout it all, Amir felt the weight of responsibility. Every decision mattered. One wrong gesture could cause panic or injury, but he also felt a profound sense of connection, the knowledge that he and the creatures were creating a new way of existing together. The bond between species was being tested, and they were passing that test with care, patience, and courage. By evening, the storm began to subside. The city was battered, but lives had been saved. News outlets reported the extraordinary events, describing the creatures not as invaders, but as protectors. People who had feared them now spoke of gratitude and awe. Children hugged the paws of the creatures, adults shook their heads in disbelief, and Amir stood among them all, exhausted but fulfilled. He realized that this day had been a turning point not just for the city, but for the relationship between humanity and the visitors. In the quiet moments after the storm, Amir observed the creatures resting. They had used incredible energy to assist humans, yet they showed no exhaustion, only a calm presence and an awareness of the people around them. Amir knelt beside the largest creature, placing his hand on its paw. He felt a surge of understanding and trust. The creature responded with gentle pressure, a silent acknowledgement of their shared success. In that moment, Amir realized that the bond between them was deeper than he had imagined. It was not just about guidance, it was about mutual respect, trust, and loyalty. The days that followed were filled with reflection and learning. Amir met with community leaders, teaching them how to interact with the creatures safely and respectfully. Scientists continued to observe, recording every detail to understand the intelligence and empathy of the beings. Citizens began to adjust to the presence of the aliens, learning that cooperation and understanding were far more powerful than fear and suspicion. And throughout it all, Amir remained at the center, the bridge between two worlds. Aware that the trust placed in him was immense, Amir also began to notice subtle lessons in the creature's behavior. They responded to patience, kindness, and careful observation more than anything else. When humans acted with fear, they paused or withdrew. When humans acted with empathy, they responded with warmth and guidance. Amir realized that the bond they sought was not just with him, but with humanity as a whole. His role was to show humans how to approach connection, how to act with care and understanding, and how to earn trust through actions rather than words. One evening, as the sun set and the city recovered from the storm, Amir walked with the largest creature to a quiet field nearby. The creature lowered its head, and Amir understood the unspoken message. The next challenge would be harder, testing not just trust, but loyalty. He realized that the bond between humans and the beings was fragile. Fear, misunderstanding, or selfishness could break it, and he knew that the world would watch, waiting to see if this extraordinary connection could survive the trials ahead. That night, Amir returned to his home, exhausted, yet filled with a sense of purpose. He understood that being chosen first was not a reward, it was a responsibility. He had to protect the creatures, guide humanity, and teach others the lessons of trust, empathy, and cooperation. The world outside was still uncertain and fearful, but Amir knew that the future could be bright if people learned to see beyond their fears and reach out with open hearts. And as he looked up at the night sky, where the alien ships hovered silently, Amir felt a quiet determination. He would face every challenge, every test of loyalty, and every moment of doubt with courage and care. The bond had been forged through action, understanding, and trust, and now it would be tested, proving that connection, loyalty, and empathy could overcome even the greatest fears and challenges. The days following the great storm were quieter, yet the world had changed forever. People talked not just about the strange ships in the sky, but about the connection they had witnessed between humans and the canine beings. News outlets replayed footage of rescues, gentle gestures, and the courage displayed by both species. Governments, scientists, and ordinary citizens began to understand that these creatures were not invaders. They were teachers, observers, and companions, offering humanity a chance to form a bond unlike any before. Amir woke early, as he had every morning since the first contact. He walked through the fields near his home, feeling the familiar presence of the largest creature by his side. The bond between them had grown stronger with each passing day. He no longer felt fear when the creatures approached, only calm and understanding. And he understood that the creatures were beginning to trust him not just as an individual, but as a representative of humanity. The world was still watching. Humans were divided. Some were eager to embrace the connection, while others remained fearful. Amir knew that bridging the gap between fear and understanding would not be easy. Yet he felt confident that through patience, action, and empathy, people could learn to interact with the creatures safely and respectfully. And so, he continued his work, guiding the beings and teaching humans how to approach them without panic or misunderstanding. One morning, as the sun painted the sky in soft shades of gold, Amir received a signal from the creatures. They had gathered at the edge of a large forest, and he understood immediately that they wanted him to come. He walked toward them, the earth soft beneath his feet, and felt a mixture of excitement and anticipation. The creatures moved calmly, their eyes attentive, their gestures deliberate. When Amir reached them, the largest being lowered its head to his level, and for the first time, he felt a sense of ceremony in their presence. The creatures then began a display unlike anything Amir had seen before. They moved in coordinated patterns, their massive forms creating shapes and signals that humans could barely comprehend. Amir realized that this was a way of communicating something important, an announcement, recognition, and a declaration of intent. He watched, heart pounding, as the creatures seemed to signal that the bond with humanity was official. This was not a test, not a request, but a formal recognition that humans could be part of their family. Amir's mind raced as he understood the significance. He had been chosen first, not for fame or power, but for qualities that could not be measured: kindness, patience, and the ability to connect. And now, as the creatures recognized humanity's potential, Amir realized that the world would never be the same. People would have to learn to cooperate, trust, and build relationships with beings far beyond human understanding. And he knew that the lessons he had learned would guide them. The creatures then approached Amir, one by one, lowering their heads to meet his eyes. Each touch, each gentle nudge, was a sign of acceptance. Amir felt a surge of emotion, gratitude, awe, and a sense of belonging that he had never experienced before. He realized that this was not just about him. It was about humanity as a whole. The creatures were offering friendship, trust, and a chance to become part of something extraordinary. And it was up to humans to rise to the occasion. As the creatures moved among the humans who had gathered at the forest edge, Amir guided them carefully. Children approached cautiously. Adults watched with a mixture of curiosity and caution. And even those who had been skeptical could not help but feel the calm, intelligent presence of the beings. Amir showed them how to sit quietly, extend hands gently, and observe without fear. Slowly, people began to respond, building small connections, experiencing trust in action, rather than words. The ceremony continued throughout the day. Amir moved among the creatures and humans, ensuring that each interaction was safe and meaningful. He realized that the world was learning from these actions that empathy, patience, and understanding could create bonds stronger than fear. And as the day went on, he began to see changes in people's faces. Fear softened, curiosity grew, and small gestures of trust appeared. Children hugged the creature's paws, adults offered gentle touches, and laughter replaced cries of panic. Humanity was beginning to learn what Amir had already understood. Family was not defined by species, but by connection and care. By evening, the sun was low in the sky, casting a warm golden light across the forest. The creatures gathered once more, forming a circle around Amir. He stood at the center, feeling the weight of history upon him. For a moment, all the chaos, fear, and uncertainty of the past days seemed distant. All that remained was connection to the bond between humans and beings from another world. Built on trust, understanding, and choice, Amir felt a deep sense of fulfillment. Knowing that he had helped guide this extraordinary moment, the creatures then performed a final gesture. They lowered their heads together, almost like a bow, and placed their massive paws gently on the ground in unison. Amir knelt beside them, placing his hands on theirs. The feeling was overwhelming warmth, calm, and a profound sense of belonging. He understood that this was a promise, not just to him, but to humanity, that the bond would endure, and that family could extend beyond the boundaries of imagination. The world outside the forest watched in awe. News crews captured every movement, streaming live to millions of people. Scientists recorded data, trying to understand the intelligence and empathy of the beings. Governments observed carefully, realizing that the creatures were not a threat, but a gift and opportunity to learn, to connect, and to grow. People around the world began to hope, realizing that trust and cooperation could create something beautiful and extraordinary. As night fell, the creatures began to rise slowly into the sky. Their ships glowed softly, casting light across the fields and forests. Amir stood at the edge of the gathering, feeling their presence, understanding their intelligence, and sensing their trust. He realized that this was a beginning, not an ending. Humanity had been offered a chance to build a new kind of family, one based on empathy, patience, and care. And he knew that the responsibility to guide and protect that bond would remain with him. And with those willing to follow his example, in the quiet that followed, Amir reflected on the journey. He remembered the fear he had felt on the first day, standing alone as the creatures watched him. He remembered the connection, the trust, and the lessons learned through observation and patience. And he realized that he had grown, not just as a person, but as a bridge between two worlds. The responsibility had been great, but so had the reward, a chance to create understanding where fear had once ruled. Amir looked up at the sky, where the ships hovered silently before slowly disappearing beyond the horizon. He felt a sense of hope and determination. The creatures had chosen humanity as family, and now it was humanity's turn to honor that choice. He knew that the future would bring challenges, misunderstandings, and moments of fear. But he also knew that the lessons of patience, empathy, and trust would guide humans forward. The bond had been forged, and it would endure if nurtured with care as he returned to his home that night. Amir felt the weight of history and the promise of the future. The first human had been chosen, and through him, the world had glimpsed what was possible. A connection beyond species, built on love, trust, and understanding. He knew that people would continue to watch, to learn, and to interact with the creatures. And he also knew that he would continue to guide, protect, and nurture that bond, ensuring that the extraordinary connection between humans and the beings from the stars would endure for generations to come. Amir went to sleep that night with a sense of peace. The world had changed, but he felt ready. The creatures had offered friendship, trust, and a new way of life. Humanity had a choice: to rise to the challenge, to honor the connection, and to embrace a family far larger than anyone had imagined. And Amir, the first chosen, knew that he had done everything he could to help humanity understand. The rest was up to them. And so, the day ended, but the story was only beginning. Across the world, people would remember this moment as the day humans were offered a place in a larger family, the day a man was chosen first, and the day trust, courage, and empathy proved stronger than fear. Amir's journey had reached a milestone. But the bond he had helped create would continue, growing stronger with each act of kindness, patience, and understanding. Humanity and the beings from the stars had discovered something extraordinary. Family could be chosen, nurtured, and shared across worlds.